You became a national coach of the squash team for Andorra.
Coming from the world of sport is beneficial to my career, beneficial to Sovereign, where I am now.
What exactly are the services that you're providing to people?
Set up trusts in 8 different jurisdictions of the world. We assist European, including UK companies, to establish themselves in other parts of the world. The Emirates, Qatar, Bahrain, Saudi and Oman, because often if you're not there, you're not going to win those contracts. And it's a little sad that I'm seeing more people wishing to leave the country as opposed to international people like yourself that's living overseas that wish to relocate to the UK.
It's horrible.
Challenging.
What is the best country to move from the UK into?
You don't really have to live on an exiled island in the middle of nowhere to take advantage of these wonderful countries.
You pretty much told all of it and didn't leave me any questions.
Sorry about that.
Welcome to ICA Podcast, a space where we share valuable insights and expertise of members and partners of ICA Consulting. We exist to help your businesses grow and develop at speed you prefer, connecting you to our network and making sure that everything is aligned for your success. Please feel free to connect to our network via Telegram channel. Our guest today is the Managing Director of Sovereign Group, Mr. Simon Denton. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you today?
Very well, thank you. And yourself?
Good, thank you. It's great to see you today, and it's great to welcome you on the ICA Podcast today.
Thank you.
It's wonderful to realize that we're celebrating a new partnership as well. And it's my honor to interview you today. It's such a great thing when you actually get to interview a person who is very versatile and who has a lot of different things in their backgrounds. And we'll just tap into those very lightly, because while I was preparing and I read your biography, I was very surprised you were doing so many things, and even you became a national coach of the squash team for Andorra.
Yes, when I was quite a bit younger, that's right.
Wow, it's a bit far from what you do today. So can you just walk us through how this happened?
Well,
where did you start?
It wasn't a good time when I was 21 because in England in those days there was 3 million people unemployed, and I thought it was best to go on an adventure and leave the country, which ironically led me to take squash to. I was a club player, I was a county player, but there was some opportunities overseas. So I became the Perpignan regional coach for a private club, and that being a couple of hours from Andorra. The Andorra team or the administration found me, and they said, are you going to be playing for England this year? And I sort of had to tell a white lie by saying I might struggle to play for England, but why do you want to know? And they said, well, we're needing a national coach to take the boys, the ladies and the senior men's into the European championships. That's a European team tournament of every nation in Europe.
Oh, wow.
And I said, wow. And they said, would you like to come and see us and have a trial and see if you like us and we like you? And of course, at 21, why would I say no to that? So I shortly after became the national coach, and then realised the team was lacking a little bit of depth and ability, and the president of the federation was a businessman, so he managed to get my work permit and residency permit straight through, and within a few weeks I became the number 1 and national coach and represented Andorra internationally, as well as coaching the ladies, men's and junior team, which was a far cry to being in Leicestershire, a regional county, and playing decent squash. So some professionals in England said, are you sure that there is no one better than you in this toyland paradise? I said, it's not toyland, it's a paradise, a fiscal paradise. And then I realized that a squash career is not a tennis career or a golf career, it's a little bit limited. And then I met up with the owner of a trust company, and I was coaching his wife, who was a ski instructor, and they were expanding. They knew that I spoke Catalan and had certain abilities apart from sport, and they offered me a job, which then led me to go and relocate to Gibraltar. And then I met the founder of Sovereign, and then that enabled me to proceed and be rather emergent in my international tax planning career. I went back to study remotely and internationally, thanks to a business college in Gibraltar, and then the rest is history, as I should say.
Yeah, no, very
So thanks to squash and sport, it's got to me where I am today.
But you still left some elements of that, didn't you?
Yeah.
You became a rugby referee.
Yeah, before that, I sort of carried on with my squash, representing Andorra. Wasn't the coach when I joined the organisation in Gibraltar. Then moved to Gibraltar. I represented the Gibraltar national team at squash. They're a bit more serious, but again, smaller population. And still played for them and helped out with the coaching. And then, unfortunately, when I did actually return to the UK, I picked up an attritional injury, which meant at 39 I was never going to be the same as at 21. Had a bit of back surgery. Touch wood, it's repaired, perfectly repaired, thanks to the surgeons. And then took up rowing, and thereafter cycling. So I rowed at a good level. My father was an amateur cyclist, and some of his friends went on to ride internationally. And unless you fall off your bike, you're not going to get injured, unlike squash, which is quite attritional. So cycling and rowing and cycling was a way to sustain my outlets, because whatever job we're in, whether it's medicine, art, international business, international tax, without one's outlets, it becomes a bit grey and one-dimensional. So I think having the outlets and coming from the world of sport is beneficial to my career, beneficial to Sovereign, where I am now. And thanks to my two children being a very good club level at rugby, the coaches felt that it was best I become a referee, qualify as a referee, and there's a shortage of referees, where there's not so much shortage of coaches. And I probably didn't have the patience, and I know I don't have the patience to coach 15 to 20 kids running around uncontrollably on a Saturday or Sunday. So I decided that best way to organise this lot was to become a referee. So I qualified as a referee. Still engage in cycling. I've cycled internationally, and if one is not so fit, you struggle on that. And so with squash, then rowing, cycling internationally, and the refereeing, it gives a bit back to communities while still being a bit selfish about it. Keeps you fit, keeps the outlets going, keeps your spirit and mentality fresh in a challenging world. And that's whether it's medicine, teaching, a much more important job than mine, or less so.
Yes.
Having the outlets is a secret for success.
Certainly, that's a great advice for somebody who is overworking themselves at the moment.
Exactly.
And probably you, like this mentality, as you said, it brings you more forward within your business career, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But what would you say is a real beacon that you took from that and you've put into your business and you fueled it up, and and this helped you to grow within your career more?
I think there's a intrinsic synergy between the world of sport and business. A lot of individuals and companies that are involved in sport tend to be quite successful in business. You have the competitive advantage. So it's far more difficult to win at something than lose at something. So that early sort of teenage, high-level sport into adulthood. Again, challenging to win, and there is a big thick wall between winning and losing. It's super to win, and you've got to celebrate your successes, celebrate your marginal gains as well, because it's so difficult in sport to go from a level to a much bigger level in quite a short time. In business, it's a little bit easier, but the higher you are, the more easy it is to fall. So the commercial and competitive edge that you get from sport can translate directly into business, taking nothing for granted, being prepared. They can be never short, shy, or bored of training, making oneself and the company better, going the extra mile, doing not just a little bit better than competitors, but a lot better than competitors. Even if you're smaller, less powerful, you can still do better than the competitors, and you're only as good as your next result. It's nice to celebrate the wins, but really you're only as good as the next result, and taking nothing for granted. That's the parallels I feel between sport and being moderately successful or increased success, and the difference between taking it for granted and really making a difference.
Probably the consistency as well
Yeah,
helps, right?
absolutely. Regular consistency.
Yeah, because regular effort is beneficial for the business
Exactly.
as well.
Exactly.
Yeah, great. So at the moment, we're finding ourselves in 2025. It's been 35 years since you started with Sovereign.
Yeah. Yeah. 4 decades. Wow.
Almost,
Yeah.
yeah. It's a big time, right?
Yeah.
So within that time, from the managing director of Gibraltar Sovereign, you went all the way to the managing director of the UK
Sure.
Sovereign. Did it go through France as well? Or?
No, the headquarters of Sovereign has always been Gibraltar, because that's where the operation started 38 years ago, back in 1987. And there's an opportunity to set up, formally establish, meaning moving back to the UK. I was, yes, missing my mother, missing the Four Seasons, compared with the idyllic sunshine of Spain, Costa del Sol, and Gibraltar. Some people thought I was mad to leave that culture and environment, but I felt it was time to be a small fish in a big pond, to try out the world's best. I think it still is. It doesn't always feel like that. The world's largest or the world's best financial centre. I think we just about got that, and achieve and do better things in the UK, whilst going back to my roots. London wasn't my roots, but it was provincial county of Leicestershire. But giving a good go and establishing Sovereign and making it, or making it the impact that it has been, and increasingly so, from ground zero, almost a bit like a sports game and a sports career. You start at the very beginning, obviously, and you take it on to win some achievements. And it was an opportunity that came about, and an opportunity not to refuse. It was a career move rather than a cultural one, but it was nice to get back to mum, to basics. And it'd been 10 years since I'd left the UK at an early age, and there was perhaps the country had perhaps repaired itself from the doldrums of the late 80s, and it was a chance to work in a great capital, which is where I still am.
Yeah, it's a wonderful finding for the Sovereign as well.
Yeah, no, we both done well out of it.
Yeah, because it's very rarely you can find a person with such a great mentality and sustainable mentality. So within the UK Sovereign, which because we all know that Sovereign is a very big company, and it's got branches in Gibraltar still, it's got branches in Hong Kong, it's got branches in London, obviously, and many other places.
Sure.
You are taking care of the UK specifically, and what exactly are the services that you're providing to people?
Okay. And thanks for the intro on Sovereign. It is an interesting, eclectic range of companies. We have subsidiaries in 23 locations throughout the world, but we're still under private ownership, in-house ownership. We haven't conceded to being owned by a bank, a private equity house, which makes us a little bit old-fashioned, sometimes a little bit boring. But at least our ownership is not changing every 5 years like some of the bigger companies, and we've got some very good old-fashioned values there. So establishing the London office in 1998 was perhaps a courageous but a easier thing to do then than it perhaps is now. And the UK our UK office offers the services of our global group. We advise and assist clients in their journey to set up trusts in 8 different jurisdictions of the world. That's international, overseas, offshore, midshore, and EU trusts, especially for persons that are not British or not long-term residents of the United Kingdom. For UK people specifically, and there's 5 million British people that live overseas still, and there's UK persons, UK taxpayers, UK persons, or people like your good self that have lived here for a number of years. They can often rely on family investment companies and not trusts. So we have the domestic family investment companies, the international trusts for those that are connected to the UK but may not live here or may not come from here. And that's on the private client tax planning. So tax optimization, being taxed in one place, not several. Looking at the specific aspects of law, anti-avoidance, ethical measures to make sure the client is doing things right in terms of asset protection, wealth protection, succession planning, which tends to be taken for granted at a younger age, but perhaps shouldn't be, and the estate planning. And unfortunately, one of the world's worst taxes that we have in the UK is inheritance tax. It's 40%, and can be 40% if you're not here tomorrow. So we're a little specialist on, quite specialist on that through trusts, family investment companies, international pensions. So that's part of the service. And with UK and European companies trying to get a competitive advantage and seeking to undertake business expansion, regional business expansion, we assist European, including UK companies, to establish themselves in other parts of the world, throughout Africa, often through Mauritius. We've got a big footprint and over 90 people in the Middle East, the Emirates, Qatar, Bahrain, Saudi, and Oman, which is a big growth area.
Yeah, especially
Often
now.
it is, because often if you're not there and not investing in the country or not having a regional base, you're not going to win those contracts. The locals, old-fashionedly and rightly so, want to see a commitment to businesses moving to that area, and Sovereign deliver a whole range of services in helping a company partially migrate, set up, establish its regional headquarters. The same in China, Hong Kong, and Singapore. And if you can become become quite specialist in different parts of the world, when you come to expand and do business throughout the European Union, the 27 nations of the European Union, used to be 28 when we were once a member, which is a dreadful decision to actually pull out. Maybe one day we'll get back in if they'll have us. But becoming established in one or any one of the 27 member states is somewhat a little more straightforward than perhaps doing business in Africa and Southeast Asia. But at least we assist companies around the world, SMEs and larger companies, larger corporates, to become established in these interesting but often challenging regions. We've got the expertise, 38 years of experience in doing this, and the corporate services that we offer to these businesses is pretty prolific and interesting, and the clients are grateful for our involvement in taking on their journey. Often the executives, the C-suite executives, the chairmans, the financial officers, and other key decision makers. They may be getting to pension retirement age of 55. He or she may have a little bit of retirement focus that they wish to address. They perhaps work remotely in the dreadful years of COVID, or were stranded in another country. So international, individual and corporate mobility is a pretty decisive range of expertise. And we do assist private clients, and the private clients can also be a corporate client, because they're leading the expansion of an international business. And once clients get a flavor of trading overseas, they often prefer to retire overseas, or mix that with hybrid working, a shorter week, enjoying the lifestyle and cost of living in a foreign or new country. So individual mobility and to some extent retirement post 55 is a field of expertise that we've become rather good at.
Right. You pretty much told all of it and didn't leave me any questions.
Sorry about that.
But no, it's excellent. Thank you so much for walking us through this. And we all know that Conservative Party has been in power for millions of years, and now we are experiencing big changes as a country. What would you say are the most challenging things coming on the way to tax optimization?
Right. That's a good question. And yes, there's been some remarkable tax reforms which actually get introduced next week, being the 6th of April, the start of the next UK financial year. Unlike most countries, we don't actually have a financial year that follows the calendar year. It's 6th of April. So the tax reforms, some of the first in 200 years, are being introduced, which are being direct, as you're used to me being quite direct, are wrong, backward, primitive, and go against the grain of normality and common decency. The law of domicile, which other countries have adopted, even civil Roman law countries like Italy and Greece, have realised that what the UK have and had is relevant to economic advancement in, for example, Greece and Italy. So they've adopted our laws, and we're saying goodbye to it on the 6th of April. So domicile, for the first time in 200 years, or around about that sort of time, is no longer going to be in existence, and it's going to be replaced by a residency-based system, a continental system, which again is a step backwards. So I'm wholeheartedly against that, but it is what it is. So the challenge is to address the reforms. Each client is obviously treated on their own merits, and the unfortunate positive is that I'm probably addressing one person a week, whether that's a person, a family, a business owner, or it could be all of those, about the prospect of leaving the country. Not that I'm advising it, but they're coming to me by saying, I'm not liking the tax reforms. I'm not liking what this government is about to roll out. Please tell me where I can move to. Please tell me there's a chance to run a business overseas, run an international business from a different country, and assist me to select the right country with the right fiscal certainty, a relevant cost of living. And it's a little sad that I'm seeing more people wishing to leave the country, as opposed to international people like yourself that's living overseas that wish to relocate to the UK to take advantage of one of the immigration programs, such as the innovative visa, the global talent visa, and the skilled worker visa. So that's the sort of current landscape at the moment.
It's horrible. Well, it is and it
Challenging.
isn't. It's challenging, yeah, that's right. I mean, it's good that people are going to move into some warmer countries where the weather is nice.
Quite.
And the taxes are good in there, so it's great that you're helping them to do
Yeah.
so.
We'd rather see a bit of both because we've brought a lot of businesses, we've assisted a lot of overseas businesses in the past to come into the UK, a lot of overseas individuals to take advantage of the non-UK domiciled landscape. It's still applicable for the likes of you equivalent, a family equivalent, to come into the UK and enjoy some tax freedoms for the first 4 years. But we've gone from a 15-year tax relieved freedom of overseas income and gains to just 4 years, and that sort of that decline in the reliefs are not being undertaken over a period of time. It's going from 15 years to 4 years. So the challenge again is to address each client, the existing non-UK DOMs that are living in this country, and we've got some wonderful solutions for them. Although there's not so much the volume of solutions that once could be enjoyed prior to the 6th of April in next week. But there are solutions, and it just makes it a little harder and a little more challenging, but at least we've been doing it for 38 years.
Right. On that, what is the best country to move from the UK into?
That's individually. I'm obviously, if I say just one, and I'm going to upset a lot of other.
No,
I'm going to upset. I'm going to upset a lot. I'm going to upset the rest of the world. I can say with popularity, Polina, with popularity where British taxpayers are focusing on, where British taxpayers have a synergy and are have a tendency to move to. It's not my personal choice. But this is the top 5 countries of interest and in regard to the countries that are offering some interesting incentives and interesting and compelling advantages, and that's Greece, Italy, Malta, Cyprus, the Emirates, the UAE, Dubai,
Emirates.
Abu Dhabi.
Oh yeah, there's zero income tax.
Probably for the younger generation like yourself, where it's a bit faster, a lot hotter, and once you get used to life in the Emirates and the region, it's sometimes the challenge is leaving and coming back to what you were used to. But I think those 5, funny enough, the EU of Greece, Italy are up there. When 10 years ago, when I was representing this industry and have done for a long time, EU tax competition was forbidden. It was something you should never have talked about. Now there's remarkable EU tax competition with the likes of Portugal, Spain on the Beckham law, Malta, Cyprus, Italy, Greece. The advent of non-dom legislation sworn in by civil law countries. So that makes it quite interesting. So you don't really have to live on an exiled island in the middle of nowhere to take advantage of these wonderful countries. And it doesn't matter so much that the UK dropped out of the EU because there's ironically a number of benefits that are targeted to non-EU nationals as opposed to going against EU law and conflicting with other EU legislation. So for once, the British have an advantage in being able to settle in the likes of Greece, Malta, Cyprus, and other countries. There are 30 countries to choose from of that have serious, well delivered legislation that's attracting foreign nationals to settle, and not just for the short-term future, just for a quick fix on one's capital gains tax. You can include Switzerland, Monaco, and many other countries. So, but the 5 that I've just mentioned are the most popular.
Right. Thank you for the cheat sheet. If you were a professional moving into another country, which one would you pick?
If France adopted the legislation of the tax legislation, the tax breaks, the reliefs, and the reforms that Greece and Italy have, France would be full of wealth and even better than it's doing at the moment. But they won't do that. It's just the way. It's just the way the fabric of the country is cemented. But so France would have been my most popular, having a relationship with France already. I would say it's a bit between Greece and Italy.
Greece and Italy.
Non-dom legislation, and also you get to a certain age, like once you get to 55 or above, the Greeks copied the Italians, but then they'll probably argue about that. But Italy and Greece have a pensioners regime because pension retirement age is 55. And if you can show that you've got a basic private or suitable public pension, and that you're not going to become a burden on the state, you can go to live in Italy and Greece, enjoy Schengen visa rights, and you're subject to tax on your global income at 7%, which is far better than the high rates of tax that normal people are subjected to in the EU, and especially the UK. So 7% tax on one's global income is a pretty compelling argument, and well done Italy and Greece for attracting the sort of lively 50-year-olds that can still run a business, still be dynamic in their international challenges and ownership and management of what they continue to work with, whilst enjoying the lifestyle of two wonderful countries.
And they won't have to pay anything in the UK if they move.
If you do move, and that's an extremely good question, the problem is not finding the right country to go to, and there's more than 30 out there that are attractive for cost of living, vibrancy of life, and stability, political stability, safety, health services. They really do try very hard, these countries, and so they should. But it's not just where you're going to go to live, it's actually leaving the UK properly. They've got similar laws in India for Indians. That's probably why the biggest expat population are Indians that live in this country and others. There's 33 million Indians that live outside of India, whereas only 5 million Brits that live outside of the UK, although India has the biggest population, even bigger than China now. Wow. But it's the planning involved for any person of any country, especially the UK, is how you leave, how you close the door behind you, and how you should prevent in being fiscally resident of both countries. Because if you get that wrong, it's no point going in the first place. And that's the UK statutory residence test, which was a set of laws that were introduced by Parliament in 2013. Make sure you want to do it. Make sure that your number of days that you spend in the UK is a certain minimum. And you don't overstep the boundaries of the day counting, that your sufficient ties with a country are reduced so that you can carry on, enjoy, and just become resident of a new country, as opposed to being resident of the country you're leaving and the country that you're going to. Being dual resident is almost a fate worse than death, and the planning around that is so important. Common sense, but you should not take that for granted.
Yeah, you almost become a tourist in your own country.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, if you're doing it right, and you're taking the family, and you're not leaving the dog, cat, partner, children, spouse behind, and I'm not going to get sexist in that comment, and you're working less than 40 days in the UK, and you've just got a couple of ties that you have in the UK, that would be a previous residence tie. I'm not suggesting anyone should lose their property or not have rented or property available for one's use, because the British do like their castles. We do like to have and enjoy home ownership. So don't give that up. But you've got to want to be in the new country more than the UK. work less in the UK and much more in the new country, and take spouse, partner, dog, cat, and children with you, because if you don't, that's another tie, and therefore you may make it may be more difficult to leave the UK, become non-resident. But once you're non-resident, your dividend tax is reduced from 40 to 0 in the subsequent year. Your capital gains tax is reduced from 24 to 0, with exception to property, and the corporation tax in the Emirates is 9%, in Malta effectively 5%, in Cyprus 12.5%, compared to 25% in the UK. So for getting it right, those are the benefits. Getting it wrong, well, why would you pay two lots of tax, and why would you leave if you're not going to do it right?
Yeah,
And that's what we tend to practically advise on, and make sure clients are doing the right thing. If you can't do it, put it off, do it later.
yeah. It's a very quality advice. And you need to get it right if you are to do so. You're very right. You need to be definite on
Get it right
on
first time.
Yeah.
Comes back to sport, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
It does. What about trust foundations? Are you able to establish a trust foundation for each of those countries then?
Yes. Foundations are different to trusts, so be careful on that. I would never set up a foundation for a UK person, because we don't recognise that under our law, unlike Switzerland, Liechtenstein, Italy, France, and Belgium, and most of the EU. Common law, the jurisprudence over common law tends not to recognise foundations, and the UK Treasury, UK Parliament, HMRC do not recognise foundations. So please do not consider a foundation for a UK person that stays in the UK, a person that maybe a foreign person that's living in the UK, but for someone that is overseas for 10 years or more, UK person, for example, but more importantly, a person from another country that is used to, in their own fiscal landscape, foundation law. They can be a useful substitute to setting up a trust, but not to be confused. A foundation is not a trust. A trust is not a foundation.
Yeah.
And those are the rules I would adopt when considering to set one up. And yep, we do both. Offshore foundations, we undertake both offshore foundations, Liechtenstein foundations, other foundations, but I wouldn't use one for a UK resident, someone moving to the UK, or even someone leaving the UK until they've left the country and not lived here for 10 years. And trusts, in my view, are the sort of Rolls Royce of planning. The legislation was introduced hundreds of years ago for trusts. The law is very mature. It's one of the greatest things under the English landscape architecture. Asset protection trust, family trusts, excluded property trusts. There is a big, wonderful future for trusts, case by case, and they, in my view, a bit more superior to a foundation.
Okay, and would you say if a person is moving to another country like Greece, Italy, Malta, and all of those five, how difficult it will be to establish a trust?
If not difficult at all, you've made a very, very good point. Their trusts are not just for the rich and famous, and trusts are not just for tax exiles that live in the Caribbean or places like Monaco. They have a major appeal. A cross-section of a population can use one. More difficult for British nationals or long-term residents or persons that are deemed domiciled, but for rest of world clients, trusts are very important. When a British person leaves the UK, like I've mentioned, there's more leaving than arriving at the moment. I would start with a family investment company, an offshore family investment company, and only when they've moved out of the UK, only when they've lived outside the UK for 10 or more years, that UK person could then set up a trust without any attack, challenge, or fiscal issue for that UK person. Most of our clients are not British or living overseas, international in focus, rest of world. So the application of trust is so much more compelling for them.
Right.
That's where I start.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Okay.
So now we're going to move to the Blitz questions, which are fairly quick. And
Okay, I will be quick this time.
what is the best piece of business advice you have ever received?
Best piece of advice. I take advice all the time. Those that, if you think you've, I'll be quick, but I take advice all the time. Buying a second property was a solid piece of advice I received, and I think, personally, selfishly, buying a second property many years ago, buy to let. Property market in the UK is a barometer of the economy, so why wouldn't you do that with a bit of spare cash? At the time I was able to undertake that. So and also, second bit of advice: contribute to a pension at an early age. Doesn't have to be very much, but many governments don't actually volunteer relief or automatically give you benefits, but there's tax relief to be enjoyed if you contribute to a pension. And the pension industry is one of the most mature industries in our landscape. So it's never too young to put a little bit aside, rather than spend it, rather enjoy it. Put a little bit aside for when one gets a little bit older.
Mm-hmm. I will ask one question about the second home because it's been on the agenda of the UK for a bit. You know that you have to pay double council tax now for the second home now.
Yeah.
So can it be avoided?
No, I would advise any investors of property, pretty much anywhere in the world, really, try and buy with mortgage finance. So let the banks work for you for a change. Try and buy with mortgage finance. You'll hopefully over a longer period of time get capital appreciation. The rental income should go some way, if not the total way, of expensing mortgage finance. And you can always increase, if you are property centric. Once you have the second property, it's slightly easier to build a portfolio of properties, whether it be commercial, buy to let, land for development of trade, and work with a bank or banks that will facilitate that journey.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Stepping back into Blitz questionnaire. Question number 2. Squash, cycling, rugby. What is your favorite sport to play right now?
Right now, not difficult. So I no longer playing squash, perhaps because of age and previous injuries. Rowing I enjoyed. I've never been fitter, but 7 people don't get into a boat of 8. Cycling, you can cycle as long as you don't fall off. Cycling, you can cycle when you're 100. And so I'd have to say cycling, and the rugby is my refereeing duty. Cycling is probably the one at the moment.
Okay, great. Question number 3. Do you play any musical instruments?
I sort of do. I got to study grade 8 on classical clarinet as perhaps when I was more even younger than your good self. So I've still got my A and B flat clarinets. I still listen to the music. It's a slightly more forgiving instrument to learn. So yeah, I'm a clarinetist as well. Right.
Do you use it to soothe yourself every now and then?
I don't necessarily have the time, but once you start playing an instrument and to a good level, there's nothing more that focuses the mind. A very useful outlet, whether it's the arts, music, or those sort of dimensions. I would encourage anyone to give it a go.
Yeah, because you're releasing the higher frequencies straight away, isn't it?
Exactly.
Question number 4: if you were not in the financial services, what career would you pursue?
Sports psychology.
Sports psychology. Interesting. Question number 5: what's one book you think everyone in wealth management should read?
My favourite book was reading about Chris Froome dominating the Tour de France for a few years against adversity. So when I tend to pick up a book, it tends to be something that's completely different to what I do every day. So it will be an autobiography, a biography of someone that has achieved in adversity. But you can never stop learning. If you stop learning, it's time to give up. Never stop studying, never stop learning.
Right. Thank you. Describe tax optimization in 3 words.
Asset protection. It's not 3 words, but 3 titles. Asset protection, succession planning, and taxation savings.
Excellent. What is the most common mistake people make in estate planning?
They leave it too late. They don't think they don't think tax optimization, users of tax optimization, when they get to adopt it, have previously thought that it's only for the rich and famous. It could be a startup. It could be mum and dad owning a business. It's never too early. Get early advice, because initial advice is usually without obligation.
Right. Thank you. Morning person or night owl?
Mostly morning until the weekend. Yeah, you got to get a good start of the day. Got to get in front of the competition.
What time do you wake up?
6:30.
Right. That's a good time. What's a myth about tax planning that you'd like to debunk?
It need not be complicated, because the questions I normally ask any client is, where were you born? Domicile of origin. What's your citizenship? Because clients often have more than one. Where are you resident? Where do you want to move to? And what's your current financial situation? With that information, or with those questions answered, it's usually pretty straightforward to give a map of action and a tailored recommendation, which will be definitely better than doing nothing. So it doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be expensive, and it's not just for the rich and famous.
And the last question, if you could give one tax saving tip to every UK business owner, what would it be?
Register your intellectual property. A startup is often in one's head. They don't believe it would be so valuable in a short to medium term. And often it's too late to go back to the start. Obviously, if you can't wind the clock back. So intellectual property, trademark registration, patent registration, protecting what you've invented. Again, do it early as opposed to much later. Because when it comes to selling your business, protecting the business, growing the business, bit like wills and last testaments, 60% of the population haven't created a will. A lot more haven't registered their intellectual property. Just need a bit of advice, a bit of practical application, and you'll thank yourself for doing it at an early stage, as opposed to when it's a little bit too late.
Right. Thank you very much for the great answers, and thank you very much for the interview.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure, and we hope we'll see you again in the future, because this is a series of the interviews.
I'd
And
love that.
we will be available if there are some tax changes or the regulation changes. That would be very interesting to talk to you again. Thank you so much.
Good to see you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.